I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Mary Kissel, back from the West, from her adventure, great success, traveling out west in America and to a rodeo, is here because we're discussing the rodeo in Washington, a rodeo that yet has, I can follow through with the metaphors,
kicking up a lot of dirt.
Yeah,
that kind
kicking
of
up
thing.
a lot of dirt, falling off of horses, roping cows,
Bad
struggling
jokes.
with horns, all of that stuff. But we'll get to John Fund of the National Review Online, who has a new column just up on the NRO. You can all enjoy it, talking about dragooning Democrats. Now, I can't imagine why people would want to read about dragooning Democrats and the authorization of the use of military force. Mr. Fund, a very good evening to you. Have you seen this dragooning personally? I mean, is it happening in the darkening, abandoned parts of Congress right now? Are people screaming? Good evening, John.
Well, there's a lot of messiness that will go on behind the scenes, but some of it is on television, where you'll have two Democrats appear, for example, as Charlie Rangel and Jim Moran of Virginia, and Moran of Virginia basically dressing down Charlie Rangel, a Korean War veteran, saying, not only are you wrong to oppose intervention, but you're going to cripple our president for the next 40 months and render him useless.
John, I get the sense that there's a lot of resentment in the Democratic Party that the president is putting these politicians in this position. Why do this at all? Do you have any insight into that? Why did he change his mind?
Because he himself was personally humiliated and worried about what would happen if he went to war and without the British. And I think that he decided to punt, to kick the can down the road, and the easiest way to kick the can down the road was to throw it in the lap of Congress while reserving his options. The problem with that is he didn't consult Congress. This president has very poor relations not only with Republicans in Congress, but with Democrats in Congress. The thing that they really resent, you didn't give us any warning, you didn't consult us, how dare you?
Mr. Fund, I'm reading Scott Berg's wonderful new biography of Woodrow Wilson, and I recommend it to all, though it's not published yet. Here it comes. I started with September 1919, when Wilson goes to the people in the 5,000 or 7,000 a mile trip by railroad through the very same territory you traveled, Mary. And his passion to make the case for this has to do with the League of Nations and the ability of nations to enforce, similar to what the United Nations Security Council can do today. And what I saw as the president spoke and was applauded, and by the time he got to California, he was on a roll. What I saw was a man personally invested in a foreign policy initiative that he knew was being resisted loudly by the Senate, led by Mr. Lodge in the Senate of Massachusetts. The president took it personally, John, and it hurt his health, and we know now that he had a series of attacks leading to a stroke in the White House in October of 1919 that effectively ended his president. The reason I ask this, there is the concern that Mr. Obama will take this personally and that it weighs on him and weighs on the next 3.5 years. Have you heard that expressed from the Democrats, John?
No, because he's barely talked to anyone. I mean, he's off in St. Petersburg, Russia, which, makes it difficult to lobby from that distance. He has a fundraiser in California, so he will start lobbying again on Monday. But, John, I don't think we want to exaggerate too much. Of course the president would be hurt, and the credibility to some extent of the United States would be hurt should Congress not give authorization for conflict. However, I had lunch today with several congressional and none of them believed that if it looked like defeat was certain in the House, the Senate couldn't go the president's way perhaps, although it's not a sure thing. If the president faced certain defeat in the House, no one there believed they would actually go to the vote and on the floor.
John, why is it, as you note in your column tonight, why is it that some of these big dog Democrats, you cite several of them, Dick Durbin, the majority whip in the Senate, Armed Services Chairman Carl Levin, California's Barbara Boxer, are not speaking up, are not out there publicly supporting President Obama?
Well, many of those voted against the Iraq intervention. Many of them don't want to vote for this. They may give the president a vote out of loyalty or out of concern that he will be politically crippled should he lose. But asking them to lobby other members or to speak out publicly may be a declaration too far.
John, I want to go through what you believe is going on in the Democratic Party and see if I understand this. The president's supporters believe they can win the Senate. That means they can win the filibuster. They can get 60 votes. They believe they have 60 votes.
They believe they can get there. They don't have now.
All right. And presuming they get 60 votes and they move the motion and it comes to a vote and they win in the Senate, then it goes to the House. But if they do a whip count and they have a loser, they'll pull it? The president will walk away?
No. Remember, the calendar and the floor schedule in the House is determined by the Speaker, John Boehner, and the Majority Leader, Eric Cantor. Remember, they have other issues that take precedence in the long run over Syria. They have the debt limit. They have the budget fight. They have a whole range of things they're going to be arguing about. Obviously, to spare the president embarrassment and agree not to put the vote to the floor would save Obama a great deal of angst, would give them some leverage in those other fights. I mean, I don't think, the spectacle of seeing the United States president lose on the House floor, something this dramatic, does the country any good. So I think that they would be a gentleman's agreement that the president would not have to go through being humiliated the way David Cameron was in Britain.
But, John, why would House Republicans trust that the president would repay them in the future, given his complete inability to give them anything? I mean, the negotiations over tax, debt, it's been a joke.
I think that they would view it as a patriotic gesture. They would also view it as building up some, shall we say, chits with the media and with outside observers that they didn't move in for the kill in broad daylight.
Mr. Funn, finally, because you speak to many members of Congress and their staffs right now, is there a sense of despair here? I mean, I understand there's a kind of joy to head counting, but also this is a defeat for the United States of America that we can't enforce our own president. Is there a sense of that in Congress?
Well, there's confusion and disbelief that the president has put himself in this position, and by putting himself in this position, he's put the Congress in this position, and by extension, the country. It was completely unnecessary, regardless of your view on the Syrian intervention. This is a misunderstanding, a miscommunication of disastrous proportions, and the president is only making it worse with his comments in Stockholm saying, "I didn't draw a red line."
John Funn of the National Review Online, Mary Kissel, the host of Opinion Journal each day at WSJ.com, and you'll enjoy yourself next week on this one, Mary. Also a member of the editorial board. I'm John Batchelor.